Firstly, pardon me for my throat. It's not because of the flash floods in the Tri-City of Chandigarh from where I'm coming. I think it's perhaps due to some masala tea that I took this morning. Right. At the outset, let me thank the organizers for the invite to be here today. It's a pleasure for me to be here to interact with you. And I'll be giving you the military's perspective of the subject that has been given out today, as far as I'm concerned. Right. One of the reasons you will find that the Indian Army never lets the nation down is basically on account of two principles it works on. One is being ready, and the second being relevant. Ready, of course, is ensuring that we are up and about, we are totally aligned to the tasks that are at hand, the commitments given to us by the government, our constitutional responsibilities, we are geared up, and relevant in terms of adapting, innovating, and transforming in the context of changes that are occurring in the environment. Ours is an organization which has a very robust crystal gazing mechanism which enables our leaders to look beyond the horizon about the changes that are coming in. It's my belief, ladies and gentlemen, that great leaders lead change and not so great leaders manage change. So of course, it's always a mix of leading and managing. But of course, if you have a crystal gazing mechanism, you can look beyond what exactly is going to come about. You can put your arms around that particular problem, that situation, and deal with it. And Indian Army specializes in that. And that's the reason, if you see during coronavirus, to remind you, from 1.4 million strength of the military, I'm talking of all three services, we have about 70,000 personnel who were affected. And our total fatal were only 200. Of course, we did have a setback initially, but we were able to bounce back. We bounced back because of our culture. Ladies and gentlemen, we all achieve our goals, our visions, our objectives through a strategy. But I think more important in any organization than strategy is the culture. And to quote Peter Drucker, one of the gurus of management, those of you who have done MBA, you would have heard about him. He said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. I wonder how many of you have heard of this? Intelligent a lot. People, you read a lot. He didn't mean to undermine strategy by any means. He just said that culture is an overarching, I would say, ecosystem that has got to be created by leaders, wherein people are skilled, where people are on the auto mode, the organization is able to lead change, it's able to build trust, there is homogeneity, there is camaraderie, there is spirit de corps, there is concern for each other, there is discipline. An organization which actually hinges on values. What is culture, ladies and gentlemen? Culture is an ecosystem that is created over time. In the case of EconomicTimes, it's, I think, about 61 years old. I think if I'm not wrong, you came into being in 1961. Indian Army's culture is 75 years old, or 76 years old, after 47. And this culture is formed over time. It's based on time-tested, validated beliefs, customs, traditions, and values. Indian Army has got an adaptive, innovative, learning, and a value-driven culture. When I say adaptive, I gave the example of coronavirus, how exactly we dealt with it. We adapted to the situation in no time because we had flexibility. We had agility in our leaders, agility in planning, agility in terms of taking decisions, and being able to gauge, fathom how the environment is, what it like to come about. Problem solving is something which is inherent to our culture. When I said adaptive, thereafter I said innovative. Innovative is a creative culture, ladies and gentlemen. We emphasize on creativity a lot. My previous speaker, Mr. Gupta, talked about why. We always encourage our people to ask this question, why? Whenever they are given a task, why? Why this? Why not this way? We encourage them to question these structures, the processes, the plans that we have made. Is there any other way of doing it? That brings about creativity, analytical skill, reflective skills. That's something we encourage as far as our organization, our culture is concerned. And then coming on to learning. Ladies and gentlemen, people generally think that, we people are always in combat. And, well, we are in combat on the line of actual control, on the line of control, and you would have seen that despite the commitments of the combat soldiers in these areas, we were able to deal with coronavirus very well, very effectively. There was no working from home as far as military is concerned, this army is concerned. We had to be on the post all the time and do our job. And despite that, look after our soldiers, our human capital, our human resource to make sure that the attrition was checkmated, and that's what we did. And we did it very well. Learning, when I say, it's a learning culture from the point of view of the fact that our leaders know, the organization knows that unless we learn, unless we remain abreast of the changes that are occurring in the development, in the environment, unless we remain abreast with the best practices, new trends, emerging trends, we will be nowhere. So we send our officers, our junior commissioned officers, non-commissioned officers abroad. We send them to IIMs, we send them to all reputed institutions. We make them attend such functions, and I'm sure there must be one or two guys here from the Army headquarters attending this function. Of course, if the invite had gone to the Army headquarters, they would be there. So we have this kind of a culture where learning takes place. There are brainstorming sessions regularly held. There are idea showering sessions that are regularly held. And ladies and gentlemen, the moment a book that pertains to the military, matters militaire, hits the bookshelves, it's purchased by battalions and it is analyzed. Officers are told during the mess meetings in the evening to present those books, have discussion on those. So what I'm trying to tell you is that we remain ahead of the curve. We try and ensure that we look beyond the horizon and see what is coming, what is going to be required, and we go ahead with that. As far as the military is concerned, the skills are classified essentially into 4 categories. These actually, if you think of it, I've been delivering a lot of talks to the corporate sector. They cut across all organizations, all fields of human endeavor. And the first skill, ladies and gentlemen, is the technical skill. Technical skills are basically skills required by any individual to carry out the basic task that has been assigned to him or her. You are working, for example, on a computer, knowing about it. You're working in artificial intelligence, getting to know about it. You're working on the shop floor, knowing about the machinery and getting to know about it. So depending on the level of leadership where you are you on the direct level, are you in the operational level, or are you in the strategic level? Depending on that, you hone your technical skills, which also requires getting to know technology, your IT, information technology, all these things. So we remain abreast as far as the individual skills are concerned to make sure that we keep an eye on all the developments in every field as far as the individual skills are concerned. And people, depending on the task that they are doing, they continue to hone their skills and augment their capabilities. The second concept, the skill set that we have is the conceptual skills. Conceptual skills, ladies and gentlemen, is as you go in an organization, conceptual skills are basically the people from the operational and the strategic level of an organization dealing with it. It's dealing with ideas. It's dealing with operating in an interagency, interministerial, interdepartmental organization. It's the capabilities to be able to thrive in a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous situation. Being able to take pragmatic decisions. Being able to take decisions when the entire information is not available with you. These are the conceptual skills. But unfortunately, what happens is that, we find that people, the moment we get onto the helm of affairs of an organization, we feel we are Mr. or Miss Know-all. We don't bother to thereafter acquire knowledge. And as Stephen Hawking said, the greatest enemy of knowledge is not ignorance. It's the illusion of knowledge. We tend to feel we know everything, while there is no end to learning. Even today, when I go back, I'm sure I'm going to be going back with a large number of takeaways, and I'll note them down. So the next skill is the interpersonal skill. Interpersonal skill, ladies and gentlemen, is the ability to communicate. So because the leaders have got to communicate. What exactly do they want? They've got to influence their people. And to influence them, they've got to have IQ, they've got to have EQ, they've got to understand the people, and ensure that each individual is dealt with as an institution and not one-size-fits-all kind of a template is used to influence people. This is important. And in the interpersonal skills, it is just not communicating, it is also being an active listener. Listening to your subordinates, getting to know what's happening. Because the moment you listen to them, you'll know what the problem is. And there's so much to learn even from your subordinates, let me tell you this. And that can only happen if you're a good listener. And the third, of course, ladies and gentlemen, is the non-verbal communications. Listening to what's not said by our subordinates, by the people of your organization. That is very important. And that happens once you understand, you are empathetic, you have emotional intelligence, you are a student, a quintessential student of body language. You know your team, you interact with them, you'll be able to make out. So interpersonal skills are very important. And the last, fourth one we talk about is which essentially are specific to the military, are the tactical skills, wherein we use our combat power to achieve a position of advantage vis-a-vis our adversary. In your case, tactical skills are important in terms of negotiations, in terms of market capturing, in terms of market penetration. These tactics will come in handy for you all. So these are important, which must be remembered. I mean, the previous speaker, Mr. Gupta, was talking about the end state of money, ladies and gentlemen. The difference between your initiatives in the corporate sector, while you aspire for money, we aspire to give you secure conditions so that you can make money. That's what we do. Right, so as far as the culture is concerned, the point was made about the discipline part, ladies and gentlemen. That discipline, ladies and gentlemen, comes up with the values I talked of. And these values are, we have our own values. Each organization has its own values, values which are institutional, values which are stated, and values which are operative values. There are three kinds of values in any organization. Generally, I find people clubbing these together and putting them on their website. But what happens is that these values, like we have, for example, our institutional values are that of integrity, loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, moral courage, physical courage, and honor. Integrity is doing the right thing legally and morally. That's what brings discipline in the army. The difference between the army and the civil organization, other fields of human endeavor, ladies and gentlemen, is that we make our people and we ourselves practice and live those values. We don't just put them on our website and in the dormitories and where the troops are living or in the offices. No, they are displayed there already. But we make them live. We live ourselves when we practice these values on a daily basis. And we have a very strong system of reward and punishment. People not abiding by these are taken to task. And people who abide by these are, of course, they are taken care of in the sense that they do earn laurels over time in that organization. So it's the values actually which give this thing. Now they're coming on to one very important value, which is actually, I would say, it is more of soldier's creed. We have values and soldier's creed. In the soldier's creed, there are two very important facets. One, our soldier is conditioned emotionally, mentally, and physically not to quit. You shall not quit. It's given to a soldier, he carries in his pocket. I will never quit. And when you, ladies and gentlemen, don't quit, you can't be defeated. And second is, I shall not accept defeat. There are a large number of these. I'm only talking about the one which pertain to this particular forum. It's like also that you will not leave behind your fallen colleague behind. These are the loyalties. Loyalties in the military, ladies and gentlemen, they run very, very deep. Our loyalties are from womb to tomb. Whom I'm saying the day a soldier gets into the army, the day an army officer gets into the organization, until he dies, mind you, we are in touch with that individual. We meet on a yearly basis, we check about each other's concern, how they are doing, what they are doing, and we take care of them. So if the organization has the loyalties, you'll find there'll be discipline. You'll be able to bounce back. You will have that, the ability with you to relate to any situation, align yourself with it, and overcome any challenges which are over there. Overcoming every possible setback that you may have. So from that point of view, the other thing I wanted to touch upon is about the agility part and the resilience. Resilience, as I brought out earlier, ladies and gentlemen, it is mental conditioning. That's the most important thing. In any organization, you'll be never working alone. Even if you got your individual goals, ladies and gentlemen, you would be having someone to guide you. The moment that person who's guiding you, a coach or somebody comes along, a person who's counseling you, he's part of your team. It may not be internal team, it may be part of the external team. Every team has two components, internal component and external component. So external component, these people may be there who are helping out an individual. But take it from me, there is no person on this earth who individually can achieve something in life. It is teamwork. It is camaraderie. It is understanding the fact that you all seated here are a group. But if you were to become a team, ladies and gentlemen, the first thing would be the alignment of your values and your thought processes with that of the organization, or the common goal for which you want to work. That is very important. And understanding the interdependencies, understanding each other's role, and understanding the fact that unless the other person performs his or her role, you shall not be able to achieve success. And that is what actually brings in agility. We have a system of functional mobility, ladies and gentlemen, in our organization. Unlike the corporate sector, where I find, a person is, am I overrunning the time? 15 minutes? Please tell me when this book, okay. Time-wise, we are okay? Yeah. So, where was I? I broke my thought process. Anyway, so what I'm coming to is that, sorry? Yeah, I was talking about functional mobility. In our organization, we move our people out every 2.5 to 3 years. And unlike the corporate sector, which feels that, longevity, enduring tenures are better, they indeed are better. But let me tell you, a lot of actually status quo sets in. Whereas we teach, ladies and gentlemen, our people to question status quo. And that's what gives agility. That's what gives creativity. So question status quo, move out people. So what happens is you are able to break the silos, there is better interoperability, and you're able to move your resources from place A to B. When you talk of agility, agility is right from cutting down your OODA cycle and your timely decisions from observing, orientating, deciding, and acting. That OODA cycle has got to be shortened. It starts from there as an agile leader, thinking on your feet. And that happens once you know what's going around. You think of every possible contingency, you discuss. You gather collective wisdom, you operate on collective genius. You don't just sit down and think in your office just because you are the head, that you know everything. You get together your team and you actually wargame that situation. What all can happen? And the moment you keep asking questions, if this happens, then what? If this happens, then what? If this happens, then what? And that is what actually gives you a very holistic, a very comprehensive, structure to deal with any risk that may occur. And that what gives you agility. Agility in terms of decision making, agility in terms of, revising your structures, your processes, technology, all these things matter. It's also in terms of movement of troops, movement of your people from place A to B. We moved them during coronavirus. We knew which all areas were affected after our detailed appreciation, and we made sure that people were there where required. So that ability again gives you the agility. And discipline, of course, I have spoken about, I have told you how it's achieved. The resilience, of course, it's all over here. The moment you decide not to give in, never to give up, you will be resilient, you will be able to make your people resilient. And of course, the leaders, of course, are committed, ladies and gentlemen. In our case, a person, when he's a leader, he knows that unless his people, his team is, he may be a funny Khan, ladies and gentlemen, he may be a cat's whisker making excellent strategies, but every leader must understand his or her plan or strategy has got to be implemented by the subordinates. So the training of those people in the earnest, making sure they understand, making sure they're a team, there is homogeneity, there is cohesion, there is camaraderie, there is spirit de corps. People live for a cause. They understand the common goal. They're able to align their values, their priorities along with that of the organization. Ladies and gentlemen, you shall be able to achieve every possible facet that you want in terms of dealing with change. As I said earlier, it is basically remaining relevant. As long as you remain relevant and you know about it, that you have to do it, it's your personal understanding. It starts from you. When I said loyalties, there are various prongs of loyalties, ladies and gentlemen, as the value. These prongs are, towards the organization, its goals, it's towards your subordinates, your seniors, your peers, your family, and towards yourself. I always maintain. Unless you have loyalty for yourself, you shall not improve yourself. And to improve yourself, trust me, till date, ladies and gentlemen, I carry out introspection before I sleep. I note down the points. I carry out a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. I write them down before I hit the sack every night. Just small one. Of course, my wife reads it once in a while and has a hearty laugh at me, especially on my weaknesses. But what I'm saying is that this is what I do. And this is, if you can start doing this, this is the beginning, this is the first step towards actually self-actualization and being able to achieve what you want to in life. Empowering yourself. Once you empowered yourself, your commitment, your loyalty towards your subordinates will ensure that you empower them as well. With that, I think I'll finish. I've taken about 15 minutes, which I was given. I'll be too glad to take on any questions that you may have. I hope I was audible with
We'd
this.
like to request those of our colleagues wanting to ask questions, please briefly do introduce yourselves. Keep the questions brief so that we can take at least a couple of them. We shall be passing on microphones. Sure, we're sending some microphones across. Yes, ma'am, first to you.
Check. Thank you so much.
Can the music go down? Unless it is supposed to ensure that I can't listen to you.
Who could? Thank you so much, Major. I think could someone guide who could start first? Okay. I'm here.
Oh yes, ma'am. Sorry. No, the lady got up there. So yes, ma'am.
I'm so sorry.
No, please, ma'am.
Yeah. I was curious to know, okay, so starting with my introduction, my name is Achla, and I lead People Development Agenda for an organization known as Moss Adams for all the India locations here. And in my role, my prime responsibility is to build the People Development Agenda for the organization at India. And what I was keen to understand from you was, you mentioned about the SWOT analysis that you do for yourself, for which further leads to self-actualization. So maybe a practical example, an example possibly which you could share with us, where you leveraged upon your strengths and opportunities, whatever came up. Because in my experience, it's our strengths that we struggle to believe in. We always bring in our beliefs which could act as a blocker in believing in those strengths which we document for ourselves.
Right. I can't share with you all my weaknesses because.
Yeah, hence the strengths.
But let me tell you, in the initial stages, I remember when I look back at these introspection, these little leaves that, over a period of time I keep going through, it was more on the emotional front. Emotional balance and emotional stability is something which, as a young officer, I lacked. Spur of the moment, you give directions and you say, this must be done my way, my way or highway. That kind of a thing. When you're young, you feel you know everything. And this is something which I realized, that emotional balance, emotional stability is very, very important. Empathy is very important. Understanding the other person's, point of view is very important. So basically, the initial weaknesses were in this regard. Thereafter, I would say they were with regard to, of course, certain missing links as far as knowledge is concerned. Team building, right from the beginning, I've been very, I would say, very much interested in as a team member myself. Because once you play games, sports, ladies and gentlemen, is the right way of making a team. That's where you get to know, when you're rubbing shoulders with your people, you get to know what kind of a leader he is or she is. Make your people, rub shoulders and not play cricket, because then they're not rubbing shoulders. You're creating solo players, who are going to be flying a solo aircraft. Make them play basketball, volleyball, see the teamwork. So teamwork was something which, again, of course, I acquired. And the aspects of tactics, because the war fighting is a very changing environment. It's a fast, rapid. Let's be very clear. Why are you here today? It's because of the rapidity of change, the quantum of change which is taking place by the day. And you've got to remain abreast. Same is the case with our tactical operations which were taking place. I remember I was in Nagaland, and the Nagas, the NSC and IM was changing their tactics by the day. We had to remain abreast. We got to know what they're doing to conserve our combat power, to make sure we have, a competitive edge over them. for that. So this is what the other thing was. The next, of course, I would say is I realize that willpower is very important, strength. Willpower is something which will take you places. Your, I would say, mental endurance will take you places. So these are my strengths I worked on, and you can call me up on the phone and I'll give you all my weaknesses, provided you keep them to yourself and don't record the conversation. Yes, please.
Not at all. Thank you so much.
Welcome, ma'am.
Jahan, sir.
Jahan,
Sir, over here, sir. Sir, 12 o'clock, sir.
Oh, yes, please.
Sir, I'm Commander Aditya Verma. I'm from the
What a
Indian
pleasure.
Navy.
What a pleasure.
Sir, I would like to start by recalling my days when we used to hear you during the Kargil War. I was still at the National Defense Academy.
Thank you.
I'm a 99th course, sir. And that was a time when we were itching to get out, but unfortunately, by time and space, we were just not making the bracket. And we used to keep hearing the various sacrifices, the stories, the almost impossible conditions. That was actually the mission impossible at that point of time, sir. So, sir, you were a real source of inspiration to us at that point of time when we used to hear you telling us the nation's initiative when this crisis was on. Sir, getting to my question. Sir, the three services are actually heading towards a merger. I call it a merger and acquisition when we look at the theater commands which are coming up. Sir, I would love to hear your views when we say what are the future skills which would be required at the strategic, the operational, and the tactical level, sir, to make this happen successfully. Thank you.
Right. I would say it has got to be strategic maturity, the first thing. Because in negotiations, it's give and take, number one. Number two, once you realize that you are doing everything for a common cause, for a national cause, then giving away, giving your turf away to the other, because it's basically a turf war, that's what's going on. Because remember one thing, you cannot blame anybody, ladies and gentlemen. What are the phases that a team goes through when a team is formed? Forming, storming, norming, and performing. And storming phase, ladies and gentlemen, never ends. And that actually finally translates into politics at workplace. There is no organization in my 42 years. I've spoken at almost 56 corporate houses. This would be the 57th one. And let me tell you, when I interact with people whom I know, there's no organization which is devoid of politics at workplace. There is tuk-tadaka going on everywhere. People are not very happy with each other. And certainly people are not happy with the immediate boss. Never. So you got to adjust, you got to adapt. This is what we are talking about. You got to learn. But that comes up with strategic maturity by understanding. And I'm sure things are going to fall in place. People are understanding very well what has to be done. Because, sticking to your turf has no meaning. In the larger interest of the national security, I think we've got to merge our resources to be able to optimize and achieve the fullest of synergy which is required as far as the combat power is concerned. And the other thing is that, what happens, ladies and gentlemen, remember that, the interests change. Like at one point of time we were, we didn't want to join any party. Today we are more aligned towards us, United States. So interests of the countries do change. With the change of interest and the geopolitical developments, there is a service that comes up vis-a-vis the other. And I think we should take it in a stride. Like, for example, now, there is the primacy of the Navy in terms of geopolitical, dealings in the area, Asia-Pacific region. Am I right? Let's be very clear, as part of the Quad. So it's got to be accepted by the Army and the Air Force. And this comes about once you have that strategic maturity that we are doing for the larger cause where certain amount of, privation, certain amount of giving away, certain amount of trade-off has got to be accepted. That's how it is. I hope I've answered your question.
Thank you so very
And
much.
thanks
We
for
only
remembering
have
me
time
from
for
the
one
Kargil
more.
War. Thank you so much. I was the Army spokesperson, ladies and gentlemen, during the Kargil War.
Good morning, sir.
Sir, good morning.
Let me please continue.
I'm
because
afraid
I
we
tried
only have
to-
time for one more question.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, sir. Myself, Dr. Aparna Joshi, and I head the Learning and Development Division of my organization, which is CalSoft INC, and I'm coming from Pune. Very inspiring talk, and thanks a lot. My question is about the pandemic era that you mentioned. You mentioned that, of course, the pandemic was a never seen before situation for whole world, and Indian Army dealt with it very smartly.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, there's slightly, distortion of your voice. Could you come
Is
closer,
there-
please? I would appreciate that. I can come there. You want me to come there?
Like this?
Slightly, you can
Ma'am,
take the
if I may
mic.
request you to please keep the microphone slightly away from your mouth.
Away. Okay. Yeah. Am I audible better now?
Yes, ma'am, better.
Yeah. I would like to ask the question about the pandemic era. Pandemic era. You mentioned that Indian Army dealt with the pandemic times very efficiently and effectively. I would like to know your experience about how Indian Army actually dealt with the emotional stress which was on the patients who were infected as well as those who were not infected, because everyone was in a condition of being scared, frustrated, and so on. So how Indian Army dealt with this emotional stress during that time? Thank you.
Ma'am, firstly, we have rehabilitation centers we had created where people who were actually affected by this went over there. We got doctors who specialize in this field of getting them, reviving them psychologically and bringing them out. But you heard the naval officer who brought out that, while in NDA, he was inching to virtually run towards Kargil and fight that war. In the military, ma'am, the culture is totally different. Trust me, ma'am. And, well, of course, it's not across the board. There may be some people who are unwell, and as I said, they are dealt with. But otherwise, by and large, it's a genuine, ma'am. It's a desire to not let go. You heard him, ma'am. It's what you see in front of you is the tricolor, the Tiranga. You see nothing else, ma'am. You remember Naam, Namak or Nishan, even if you are wounded. Naam is name of your unit of the particular company that you are in. You heard of Bikram Batra, how for his own company, he was unwell, he went. Namak is the loyalty, man. Nishan is the flag. The tri-flag, the tricolor of ours, Tiranga, the regimental flag, the army flag is something that soldier fights for. So he's totally at that point of time engrossed in a different world altogether, man. And he's not bothered. And the mental makeup is such, they are so robust mentally, ma'am, they can overcome anything. Do you know people have been cured with water? People have been cured with water because of psychological treatment. So these people, when they know that, look, merko kuch nahi hua, I have got to fight for my country, I am well, I am getting back onto my post. That's how it is. And that's how, ma'am, from 70,000 people who were affected, from a 1.4 million, strong military of our three services, only 200 fatal casualties we had, of course, which were again, people who were on leave. People who were on leave, they were mixing with people. They still had not understood the protocols. They didn't know what is to be done. The moment we got to know about it, we sent people across the villages to make sure people were told about the protocols. When they came in at the transit camps, they were told. But what you asked me was, emotional people who had this, they were dealt with empathy. We had our very experts in this field, the psychiatrists, psychologists, and all that people, experts in this field, rehabilitation camps, they were put, trained, and thereafter they went back. People who were unable to go back, of course, they were sidestepped into other units. But otherwise, we were able to deal with this entire thing with empathy and with our expertise. And good leadership. And commitment to the Tiranga. That is it.